Hello and welcome to the Let It Ride podcast, coming at you to preview Conference Championship weekend in the NFL. Recording from the car again this week due to a hectic work schedule, but not going to let that stop me from bringing you some great picks this week. I opened last week's podcast talking about all of the unders that we saw on Wild Card Weekend. Games on Wild Card Weekend went 5-1 to the under, and I told you that I expected some regression in the divisional round due to better quarterback play and less mismatches. And that ended up being true. Games went 3-1 to the over in the divisional round, including two overs that I gave out on last week's podcast. Gave out the Bills-Ravens over. That game goes over thanks to that late touchdown by the Ravens. Unfortunately for them, they missed a two-point conversion, and it wasn't enough to send that game to overtime, but it was enough to cash our over bet there. And of course, I gave out the Commanders-Lions over, which hit early in the third quarter. That one was never in doubt. So two winners on overs there. Had a push on the Eagles -6. Luckily, we do get a push. We get that in before that line moved to -6.5 right before kickoff. But really should have had a winner on that one. Jake Elliott missing 2 extra points. So if he makes either of those extra points, the Eagles -6 is another winner. My other pick that I gave out was the Chiefs to score 23 points and win the game. They win the game, but unfortunately only score 23. So two winners, a push, and then a loss by 1 point. So that close to a 4-0 week. We will look to reach that milestone this week. I have 4 picks for you this week. Hopefully we can reach that 4-0 milestone. We are going to start with the NFC title game. It is the Commanders taking on the Eagles. The Eagles, a 6.5-point favorite at home. The over-under sitting at 47.5. And first of all, I want to congratulate Commanders fans. Even as a Cowboys fan, I grew up in the D.C. area. I have a lot of close friends and family that are Commanders fans. Watching you guys root for this team over the years with Dan Snyder as the owner, this team was going nowhere. They get rid of Snyder. They get a franchise quarterback and turn things around in a blink. Couldn't be happier for you guys. I'm rooting for you to beat the Eagles. Even though I know if the situation was reversed, you wouldn't be rooting for me. That's fine. Don't care about that. Go Commanders. Really hope you beat our common enemy in the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the talking points that you're going to hear a lot of this week is rookie quarterbacks making the conference championship game. They are 0-5. The previous 5 that made it all lost. But the difference here is Jayden Daniels is carrying this team. Those other 5 quarterbacks got carried by great rosters. Every other rookie quarterback that made a title game had a top 3 defense. You had Joe Flacco, that Ravens defense with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis. You had Mark Sanchez, that Jets defense with Bart Scott and Darrelle Revis. You had Ben Roethlisberger, that Steelers defense with Troy Polamalu and James Harrison. You had Brock Purdy with Nick Bosa and that 49ers defense. And then, of course, you had Sean King, the Buccaneers defense, which, by the way, that late 90s, early 2000s Bucs defense, that Bucs team ended up winning a Super Bowl a couple of years later. When you talk about the 85 Bears, talk about the 2000 Ravens, the steel curtain defense of the Steelers, everyone talks about them as, oh, those are the greatest defenses of all time. That Bucs defense was right up there with all of them. It was absolutely insane. You had Warren Sapp, you had John Lynch, you had Rondé Barber, you had Derek Brooks. That defense was ridiculously good. So all 5 of the previous rookie quarterbacks that made it to this point, they all got carried by their defense. The Washington Commanders don't have that kind of defense. They're ranked 18th in the league, and I think they might be worse than that. So every other rookie quarterback got carried by their roster. This rookie quarterback is carrying his roster. It's not the same thing. I don't think we can draw any comparison to the other rookie quarterbacks losing their games because Jayden Daniels is not your typical rookie quarterback. He had 55 starts in college. He came in seasoned. He came in ready for this. I don't think you're going to see him shrink in the moment. He's going to show up for this game. That doesn't mean I'm picking the Commanders. I'm just telling you that don't look at the struggles of other rookie quarterbacks and think it means anything for Jayden Daniels. I think he's going to be ready for this game. My pick for this game, I'm going to take the under 47.5 here. As far as my main pick for this game, I also have a prop that I'm going to give out a little bit later on. But there's a couple of things lending itself to the under in this game. Number one, the weather. It is bitter cold in the Northeast right now. It was 9 degrees on my way to work today, and Philadelphia is a little bit further north than me, so it could be even colder up there. So it's going to be cold. This is the 3rd time these teams have played their division rivals. They know each other's game plans. And speaking of the game plans, I think you're going to see both teams' game plans really lend itself to the under as well. You look at the way that the Commanders won that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One of the things that helped them win that game was dominating time of possession. They had a 9-minute touchdown drive in that game, an 18-play, 9-minute touchdown drive. That really went a long way to helping them win that game. I think you're going to see them kind of go for that same type of strategy against the Eagles here. I know we saw this offense absolutely explode last week against a banged-up Lions defense, this Eagles defense is not that. They allow the second fewest points per game in the NFL. They allow the fewest yards per play in the NFL. So they're not going to give up those big explosive plays that the Lions were giving up last week. This is a Commanders offense that is sixth in the league as far as converting third downs, first in the league as far as converting fourth down. So I think their strategy is going to be to keep the ball out of Saquon Barkley's hands. We saw last week with Jahmyr Gibbs, stud running backs can carve up this Commanders defense. I think they know that. They're going to shorten this game, keep it to 7 to 8 possessions, keep the ball out of Saquon Barkley's hands, stop him from hitting one of those home runs that can completely break a game open. And on the other side, the Eagles offense, one of the most conservative in the NFL. They run the ball at the highest rate in the league. So I think you're going to see both teams trying to milk clock, trying to, win a rock fight type of game in the cold. I really like the under 47.5 in this game. And you look at the other two matchups between this game. Now, one of them went over and one of them went under. We had a 26-18 Philly win in Philadelphia earlier on in the season. I don't really want to draw anything from that game because Jayden Daniels wasn't right in that game. He was coming off of an injury, and I don't think that he was the same quarterback that we're going to see this week. You also had a 36-33 Washington win with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Now, you might sit here and say, well, they put up all those points with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Why wouldn't they put up more points with Jalen Hurts? Why are you taking the under? Well, if you look at that game, so the Eagles started out the game with a long touchdown, with a long kickoff return, a drive that led to a touchdown, the only drive that Jalen Hurts was on the field for. So their other scoring drives on that game, they had a 50-yard field goal. It was really the only sustained drive that they had. They had a touchdown off of a turnover, a long Saquon run, 2 field goals off of turnover, another field goal drive that had 51 yards worth of pass interference penalties in it. So this offense wasn't really moving the ball. They were 2 for 15 on third down after Jalen Hurts left that game. So I'm not sitting here and looking at it and thinking, oh, the Eagles offense with Kenny Pickett put up 33 points, so they're going to do the same thing. The Commanders were turning the ball over left and right in that game. That is what led to all the Eagles' points. And on the other side, the Eagles were unable to move the ball. So when they gave the ball back to the Commanders, a lot of times the Commanders were in good field position as well. They scored a touchdown off a turnover in that game. So a lot of points off of turnovers, a lot of short fields. I don't think you're going to see that in this game. I think you're going to see long, sustained drives, a field position type game, really like the under 47.5 in this game. The other play I'm going to give out here is a prop. It is Jalen Hurts over 31.5 rushing yards. I don't know why this total is set so low. Saquon Barkley's rush total got as high as 130.5 earlier in the week before it got bet down. Now it's sitting at about 125. Still sky high. So I don't understand why Saquon Barkley's total is so high and Hurts' total is so low, sitting at 31.5. We saw him run for 39 yards in the first meeting between these two teams. He ran for 41 yards in the second meeting, and that was on one drive. He had 41 yards on one drive. We saw him break a long touchdown last week as well. So Jalen Hurts is running well right now, using his legs. I don't understand why this total is sitting so low, but you can find it at 31.5 right now on FanDuel. So my picks for this game, the under 47.5 and Jalen Hurts over 31.5 rushing yards. And that is going to move us on to the Bills taking on the Chiefs. The Chiefs, a 1.5 point favorite at home. The over-under also sitting at 47.5. This is the fourth playoff matchup between these two teams in the Mahomes-Allen era. We had a 27-24 KC win last year, a 42-36 KC win in the 13 seconds game. And then we had a 38-24 KC win in their only other meeting in the AFC title game. So what do those games have in common besides the fact that KC won all of them? All of them went well over this total of 47.5. We also had a 30-21 Bills win in this matchup earlier on in the season. So that game going over this total as well. So you can see the direction I'm going in here, taking the over 47.5. This is a KC offense that put up 23 points against a really good Houston defense last week. And they settled for 3 short field goals in that game, one of which came on 4th and 1. I don't think they're going to have the luxury of settling for field goals against this high-powered Buffalo Bills offense. Second in the league in points per game. They put up points against everybody. So I think this is going to be a shootout, a classic, the two best quarterbacks in the league. And I've got a total sitting under 50. I'm grabbing it here. Give me the over 47.5. And the prop for this game, we're going to take Patrick Mahomes. This is across all 4 teams. So this is a prop bet that is for the whole weekend. I'm taking Patrick Mahomes to have the most passing yards this week at plus 130. Like I said, I expect that first game to be a rock fight. Jalen Hurts has not been putting up passing totals over 200 yards the entire playoffs. He has not eclipsed 200 yards the entire playoffs. And the Eagles' pass defense is really good. They allow the fewest yards per pass attempt in the league. So I don't think Jayden Daniels is going to be putting up a high passing total in that game either. And you saw last week, Josh Allen threw for under 200 yards against the Ravens defense. They were relying on his legs, relying on James Cook. I think you see a lot of that too. I also think the Bills might jump out to an early lead in this one. So Patrick Mahomes might have to pass his team back into the game. So I'm taking Patrick Mahomes plus 130 to have the most passing yards on Championship Sunday. Also taking the over 47.5 in Bills Chiefs, taking the under 47.5 in Eagles Commanders, and my other pick in that game, taking Jalen Hurts over 31.5 rushing yards. You might notice I didn't give out a winner in either game. So I'm not going to make that part of my picks, but I'm not going to do a podcast about the championship games and not give out a winner in each game. So separate from my bets, I laid those out. Who I think is going to be in the Super Bowl. We'll start with the Bills and the Chiefs. I think it's Josh Allen's year. I just think it is. You see these matchups where it's hammer versus nail. Patrick Mahomes just keeps beating Josh Allen. Eventually, these guys break through. We eventually saw Peyton Manning finally break through against Tom Brady. I think that's what we see here. I think they've had the same dynamic. I think it is Josh Allen's time. That luck for the Chiefs has to run out at some point. They can't just keep winning these games over and over again. It's not some kind of voodoo magic. Eventually, you have to have some kind of regression. There's a reason no team has ever three-peated. I am taking the Bills to beat the Chiefs on the road on Sunday. And for the Commanders-Eagles games, I hate to do it. I told you I'm rooting for the Commanders. I hope I'm wrong. I'm taking the Eagles in this game. So I talked about the rookie quarterbacks who've made title games and how you can't draw any comparison between them and Jayden Daniels. The comparison I will draw is the best rookie quarterback I've ever seen before Jayden Daniels was Andrew Luck. He got his team to the AFC title game in his third year, and he ran into a buzzsaw New England defense, and it was just too much for him to overcome. Now, I don't think that we're going to see a 45-7 blowout like we saw in that game, but I do think at this point, this Eagles defense, Saquon Barkley on the other side, it's going to be too much for Jayden Daniels to overcome. Now, there are some other parallels between the 2014 Colts and this 2024-2025 Commanders team. So that 2014 Colts team, they were led by Andrew Luck. They had one dynamic weapon on the offensive side of the ball. Outside of him, it was T.Y. Hilton. I think you could compare T.Y. Hilton and Terry McLaurin. They kind of had similar seasons. So you had the one other blue chip pass catcher on the offensive side of the ball. You had the seasoned veteran in Reggie Wayne in 2014. For the Commanders, it's Zach Ertz. So there's some parallels between those two rosters, and I think they're going to meet the same end result here. I think the Eagles do win this game. Hope I'm wrong. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a 45-7 score, but I do think the Eagles are able to just use their talent. They are a much better team. They're going to win the battles in both trenches, and I think they do win. So I'm going to have the Bills and Eagles in the Super Bowl. But I do have a bonus bet for you on the way out. So the AFC right now, you can get the AFC to win the Super Bowl at minus 130 on DraftKings. Now, if the Commanders do pull off the upset, that's going to be a great number. And even if it is Eagles-Bills or Eagles-Chiefs, I think you're going to see the Chiefs or Bills both be favored in that matchup. So either way, I don't think the minus 130 is going to be a bad number. So in addition to my podcast picks, like I said, Commanders, Eagles under 47.5, Jalen Hurts over 31.5 rushing yards, Bills, Chiefs over 47.5, and Patrick Mahomes to have the most passing yards for the weekend. We're adding AFC to win the Super Bowl at minus 130. Those are the picks, and that is the podcast. Thank you to everybody for listening, and I will see you in a couple of weeks for a Super Bowl episode.